Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Ask Me Anything with me, Yaasha Sabba, here at Sky Unlimited Legal Advisory, skyunlimited.law. Question of the day. My grandfather passed away in Puerto Rico. He had multiple properties, one in Puerto Rico, one in California. His lawyer contacted me and said that I was the sole beneficiary of his trust. Nice, good for you. The trust includes all of his properties. Okay, good. That's an awesome thing. A fully funded trust means you're not going to court. I love that. Is there a way to sell the property I inherited from my grandfather in Puerto Rico? What's the process? Would it be possible even if I'm in California? I don't want to live there, and the best thing I can think of is selling the house. Well, there's a few ways you can go about doing this. First, you can either ask the trustee to sell the property and give you cash, make it the trustee's burden of selling the property. Sometimes they do this, sometimes they don't. That's the first step. If you know there's a trust and you are the beneficiary of a trust, the first step is always ask, who is the trustee? Where are they? How do I get in touch with them? From there, you want to verify that you're the beneficiary. So this lawyer that called you, they might be the trustee or they might represent. You might want to call the lawyer back and get a copy of the trust as well as figure out who the trustee is. It might even be you. At that point in time, two things will happen. Either the trustee can distribute the property to you, and then you, when it's in your name, you hire a real estate agent and tell them, go sell the property, email me or DocuSign me, whatever documents you want me to sign. Otherwise, you can ask the trustee, hey, I don't want these properties distributed to me. I just want cash. Can you go ahead and transfer the California real estate to my name, but go ahead and sell the properties in Puerto Rico and then give them to me. Something interesting about Puerto Rico, not related, your case is very straightforward. Go ahead and sell the properties. What's stopping you? Either the trustee gets the real estate agent or you do. You can do that from the comfort of your own home here in California. But what is interesting about Puerto Rico is it is a Caribbean island that is a U.S. territory, not actually a United States state, right? And from that standpoint, with your grandfather, as a resident of Puerto Rico, there are some tax issues that might be happening, okay? Now, he doesn't have any tax issues right now. Based on what you're telling me, your property doesn't sound like you've got more than $12 million worth of real estate, but let's say you did. If your grandfather had a lot more real estate, well, there is something in the United States called the estate tax. This is our death tax. When you pass away, if you have too much money, this is where the government takes the money, a portion of the money from you, roughly at 40%, one of the highest tax rates we have in the country. And then they give money to, you name it. Where does the government give money? The military, social welfare, other kind of stuff, right? Whatever your politics, it doesn't matter. The point is the government collects money from rich people upon their death. Anyone with more than, right now, $12.4 million. If you're married, that can be combined with estate planning. That can be combined, it's not automatic, of about $24.8 million. Do the math. So the question here is, did all of your grandfather's real estate add up to 12 million? Well, something special about Puerto Rican residents. If your grandfather was living in Puerto Rico and he had some US assets, we don't take the full value of his estate in Puerto Rico and in the United States, because Puerto Rico is technically not a US state, it's just a territory. So if your grandfather was living here in the United States, we do take the full value of his Puerto Rican real estate as well as his US real estate. So Puerto Ricans have a very interesting relationship with US law when it comes to taxes. As many of you know, people move to Puerto Rico because they don't have as high capital gains taxes, and you don't have to pay necessarily federal capital gains taxes if you're living there for a certain amount of time, right? So there's a lot of digital currency investors living out in Puerto Rico right now, I kid you not. And I don't know if they're really regretting their decision or not, but for people living in Puerto Rico that have real estate, which is a lot of Floridians, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans living in Florida. Now, I'm not a Florida estate planning attorney, but I know some. And if you have questions, let me know. We'll forward you on to our Florida attorneys. But when you live in the United States and you're a Puerto Rican resident, you're going to pay the estate tax on all of your assets around the world. Versus when you live in Puerto Rico and you have U.S. assets, we only narrow that focus to just the US assets. So you didn't tell me if your grandfather was a citizen of the United States because of his relation to Puerto Rico. Was he born in Puerto Rico, or was your grandfather born in the US in one of the 50 states and then purchased assets in Puerto Rico? The reason I ask this is because that same tax I've been talking about this whole time, there is a little nuance, another nuance, if you may, to it, which is if you were a resident of Puerto Rico or born in Puerto Rico and by your birth there, that's how you became a US citizen. Well, the United States treats you as a non-resident alien for all your assets in the US. What does this mean? That same estate tax that I've been talking about, and which was right now the exemption is 12.04. I think I've been saying 12.4. It's 12.04. Let's correct that. 12.04 million is how much you get as an exemption for all your US assets, for all assets around the world if you are a US citizen born in the United States, one of the 50 states. However, for Puerto Ricans, there is regulations that says under the tax code that we will let you deal with your Puerto Rican assets with Puerto Rican law because Puerto Rico is a US territory. It deals with its own self. But for all your assets inside of the United States, we treat you as a non-resident alien for the purposes of estate tax, not income tax, not capital gains tax, just estate tax, the death tax. And from there, the exemption goes down to $60,000. Oh, it really sucks. It really sucks. It's a great thing to be a US citizen in the United States. If you're a US citizen by nature of being a Puerto Rican resident, well, that becomes a problem, doesn't it? So if your grandfather was born in Puerto Rico and became a US citizen because of that, the property you inherit in California, it's most certainly going to be above $60,000. And the IRS is going to say, take the value of that home in California. 40% of the value is owed back to us in taxes. So either you're going to have to come up with some money of your own, or when you sell the Puerto Rican residence, you're going to have to use some of that money to help cover the taxes for the 40% of the fair market value, net equity, not fair market, net equity value of the California residence. I don't know if your grandfather had a mortgage on the property or stuff like that. So you definitely want to talk to a tax professional, all right, depending on that little nuance there. Outside of that, everything else that I've been saying before is assuming that your grandfather was born in the US and just has assets in Puerto Rico. Like I said, there's a lot of people that are born in the US, they're US citizens, they have that large estate tax exemption, and then they move to Puerto Rico to become residents there, in which case their income tax, capital gains tax changes, but their estate tax stays the same way it is. As being born in the US in any of the 50 states, they get the exemption no matter what, because we tax them on their worldwide assets at death. Yes, we're imperialists that way. So just be aware that there's a tax on the size of his estate, and when it's real estate, that's a lot of value. So if he was living in Puerto Rico and he passed away in Puerto Rico, then we only care about the property he has here in California. I'm assuming that one piece of real estate in California is not worth $12 million. If it was, good for you, man. That's awesome. Outside of that, that's all it takes. All right, nice and easy. Thank you everybody else for watching. If you have any estate planning, tax planning questions, we're more than happy to answer them here for free. If you want to go deeper and you want a little bit more of a privileged attorney-client privilege conversation, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have a quick chat, all right? Take care, everybody.